Are you ready for the FAA oral exam? Well, today on Free Pilot Training, I've got a really special treat for you. There's a brand new startup company called Check Ride Study Guide, and they actually offer mock oral exams for a really good rate. And today on Free Pilot Training, I'm going to give you a peek behind the curtain of one of those mock oral exams.
Welcome everybody to this private pilot mock oral exam. My name is Weston. I am a current airline pilot and former 141 check instructor. And I'm here with Taylor. Taylor's also an airline pilot and a previous 141 check instructor. I am with Check Ride Study Guide, who we are in the process of forming a mock oral service, a 2-hour-long mock oral service for private pilots and future ratings that is designed to get you ready for the big check ride, for your actual check ride. We are here to try to help build your confidence throughout the oral, good answers that are acceptable for the DPE or for the 141 check instructor, and overall just get you more prepared for the tough questions that, or the random questions that can come up that you're not sure of. So 2 or 3 years before I was a check instructor, before I was an airline pilot, I had done, so as Taylor, done hundreds of certifying check ride orals for the 141 system. So we've sat down and actually given the check rides themselves. What the goal of today is to give you sort of a sneak peek, about an hour-long mock oral exam. If you like what you see, then go ahead and head over there, checkridestudyguide.com. So let's go ahead and set up the scenario. So Taylor, we'll go ahead and walk through sort of setting up what you'll be doing today. So just because I like using this airport. Now, normally, when you sit down with me, I'll already know what airport you fly out of, and so I'll build the flight plan based on your home airport. For today, we're going to be doing the Delta Airport, Denton, Texas, northwest of DFW. It's where we both train out of, and so we'll just be using this for an example today. So, Taylor, we will be starting off in a scenario in which you have already received your private pilot. So you're no longer a student pilot. You've received your private pilot license successfully with the DPE. And let's say that was a few days ago. You have a friend visiting you. She's from Waco, actually. So your friend is from Waco. Waco is KACT. Down here, it's in their Delta Airport, about 95 miles south of Denton. And well, you've received your private pilot license, and so you're thinking, why not, instead of spending the 3 hours to drive down there, why don't you just go ahead and fly? So sounds fun. So that's the scenario today, is a flight from Denton to Waco. Okay, and we'll just kind of walk through that, and I'll ask you questions as we go. If you're ever unsure, let's just go ahead and just let me know, and then I'll tell you the correct response, and we'll go ahead and write it down for your study guide later that I give to you. So let's say you head up to the airport to do your pre-flight planning, okay? And you walk into the airport, and you're going to do your weight and balance and build your flight plan and do all of your pre-flight actions, 91-103, okay? And as you go up to the computer or wherever you're doing it, you notice that there's an FAA representative in the building who's doing ramp checks. So he just wants to check that pilots before they go out on the ramp are certified. He walks up to you and your friend, and he looks at you and he says, well, who will be the PIC on this flight today? What would you say?
I said I'm the PIC.
You're the PIC? Okay. And he asks you for your documents to do this flight. What documents would you show him?
I need a government-issued photo ID. I need my pilot certificate, and I need a medical or basic med.
Okay. All right, basic med or pilot medical. All right, so he looks at your private pilot license. As he's looking there, is he looking for any sort of expiration date or any sort of thing like that?
No expiration date.
No expiration date. Okay. What would expire? I mean, obviously we know currency would lapse. How long would that currency, or what would you have to do to keep that currency active?
Well, if I just got my certificate a couple days ago, I For currency, I would need a biannual flight review or to have received a certificate.
Okay, right. So a biannual flight review. So looking back, how you said biannual, so every 2 years, so every
Mhm.
24 calendar months, you, no matter what, correct? You need, I mean, unless you've received, like you said, a pilot license in that time.
Mhm.
Okay, all right. Um, Now, as far as that license go, what are some privileges that you've obtained since you've became a private pilot?
I can fly passengers now. I can I can fly for charity. I can do search and rescue. Um, I can fly to demonstrate for a sail.
Okay, all right. And if, let's say you demonstrating that cell, um, is the main objective of the business. Is that allowed, or does it, like let's say the point of the business is to, let's say, present aircraft and sell them, and you are a major part of that business as a private pilot. Is that allowed, or does it need to be something that's not really uh, crucial to the business?
It has to be incidental to business, and I
Okay.
wouldn't be allowed to accept compensation for it.
Okay. All right. Sounds perfect. And what about some limitations? You just mentioned one, but some limitations.
Yeah, you can't pay less than the prorated share of the operating expenses.
Okay.
You can't fly into instrument conditions or in class alpha airspace
Class
uh,
alpha. Okay.
unless you have an instrument rating.
All right. Perfect. Yeah. All right. And obviously, any aircraft you fly, you need to be rated in that aircraft, right?
Right, yeah.
Okay. All right. Now you mentioned a biannual flight review. Okay. If you knew a pilot when you were a student pilot, they're still a student pilot. If you knew a friend that hasn't actually gained their private pilot license, could they go up with you and certify you for that ban? I mean, who needs to be in the cockpit with you when you're doing, sorry, the flight deck, when you're doing the biannual flight review?
Like a DPE, is that like who can give me the biannual flight review?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be a DPE or a flight instructor.
Okay. So any flight instructor could do it. Okay. All right. Sounds good. Um, okay. So we kind of mentioned some privileges and limitations associated with the private pilot license. Taking a step back, when you were a student pilot, what is the benefit of a student pilot license? What are you able to do with that?
I can act as PIC without passengers.
Okay, so that's pretty much it, right? It's pretty much guaranteed allowing you to fly solo, correct?
Mhm.
That's the main important. Okay, awesome. So now looking at your photo ID, obviously you showed him you said government issued ID. That's correct. You can't just show him a school license or something like, a university license, or photo ID. Going on to the medical, you mentioned, what would be the minimum class medical you'd required for a private pilot?
Third class or basic med.
Third class or basic med? Okay. All right. So let's assume that today, before you went and took your friend up, you went and got your first class medical. Um, how long would you have until you'd have to get a new medical once you have your first class as a private pilot?
60 calendar months.
60 calendar months until that would lapse. Okay.
Mhm.
When would the first class privileges lapse?
12 calendar months.
12 calendar. Okay. So let's say 12 calendars go by,
Uh,
12 calendar months go by. You say like you'd still have another 48 months to go and you're good to go as a private pilot.
yeah, my first class would revert to third class
Okay.
privileges, not class of medical, but it would revert to third class privileges, and I would have those third class privileges for the remainder of the 60 months, which would leave you with 48 remaining.
48. Okay, perfect. Awesome. All right. And you briefly mentioned basic med.
Mhm.
Is that who is that really for in the aviation community?
Basic med is it's if you're not trying to fly commercially, if you're pretty much just into general aviation and you're doing it more of like a fun type thing, and if you're unable to get a medical certificate, you can get basic med, which allows you to basically self-examine, so that you have your own authority. You have to take a class and you have to get a physical. But once you do those things, then you're basically allowed to, like, you have like self-authority over operating
Okay.
your medical.
So you mentioned limitation. You can't fly commercial, so you can't fly for conversation or higher.
Right.
Okay. And there's some limitations there with aircraft being more than a certain weight. You know that if you are basic med, obviously you'd want to go review those a little bit further. But it's just a way for, like you said, for people. Okay, that sounds perfect. All right. Okay, so he looks at your documents, and he sees that you're taking your friend up. Would he need to, not that it's required, really by the FAA, like documentation standards, but would he need to look at your logbook for anything to verify that you're legal to take your friend?
Um, well, I mean, legally, I don't think I'm required to have it with me,
Okay.
but I would have to, like, if he asked me to prove my currency, then I would do that via logbook.
Okay, what would you show him?
Um, I would show him 3 takeoffs and landings in the past 90 days.
All right, awesome. And let's assume for this scenario that sun sets at 8 p.m. and we're taking off at 7 p.m.
Mhm.
In the flight, we know that this Waco flight will probably go into the 8 p.m. hour, meaning that sunset will have hit. Is this something that needs to be, that in your logbook, would he ask you about nighttime landings at all?
I mean, I guess it depends, like, on the time, but if I wanted to be safe, I would make sure that I had 3 takeoffs and landings to a full stop at night.
Okay, you mentioned at night. What do you mean at night for landings?
To log landings, the landings have to occur 1 hour after sunset to 1 hour before sunrise to a full stop to be considered a night landing.
Okay, all right. And so briefly, let's talk about the different night definitions. This is something that some students can get a little perplexed on. You just mentioned that the currency landings are 1 hour after sunset to 1 hour before sunrise. What are some other definitions that you know of?
The definition to log nighttime in your logbook would be it would be the civil twilight definition. So basically, when the sun is 6 degrees below the horizon, you can start logging nighttime in your logbook. Not landings, but like time.
The time. Okay.
Yeah.
So is it possible to log nighttime but not a night landing?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And is there any other definitions?
Yeah, and then the last definition pertains to your position lights, which is required at sunset to sunrise.
All right. Okay, so there's 3 definitions. That's those 3 right there. Sounds perfect. Okay. All right. And as he's, looking at your logbook, he's verified that you do have your 3 landings. Okay, if you didn't have your 3 night, landings at night, you can go ahead and get those, wait an hour to sunset and go ahead and go fly yourself. Okay, let's say that maybe you do have your 3 landings in the past 90 days. Let's say 89 days ago, you had done 3 landings at night. Okay, it's been 89 days, right? Now this is outside the scenario, assuming, but let's say this was the case. Now, if it's been 89 days, you're legal to go. You said, would you go take your friend up in that case?
No, I'd probably want to be proficient as well as legal.
Okay, all right. So that's definitely something that comes up a lot, is the proficiency versus currency sort of thing. So Right. Okay. Awesome. All right. So we've got the night definitions out of the way there, and you go ahead and he checks your documents. He says, "All right, a-okay," and you're good to go. Start doing your pre-flight actions. So as you're doing your weight and balance, your flight plan, what are some of the things you're doing in order to prepare for your flight?
Well, the first thing I'd probably check the weather in both places before I actually sat down and did the flight plan,
Okay. Check the weather. All right.
because you need to know the weather to know the runways you're landing on and everything, and
Okay.
if you can even make the straight line path. So I would check weather probably first.
Okay.
After knowing that I'm legal as a pilot to make the flight, I would probably go for weather.
Okay. All right. Let's say, you did weight and balance, you did your flight plan. As you're doing those things, like what are the requirements per the FAA that you need to cover in your pre-flight, like information wise?
Oh, oh, uh, that's gonna be NW craft. So, you have to check NOTAMs at both airports and en route airports. Weather, any known traffic delays. Um, R would be uh,
Runway links?
I'll come
Yeah.
I'll come back to that.
Okay.
Oh yeah, runway links.
Okay.
A would be an alternate plan of action. F would be fuel requirements, and T is takeoff landing distances.
All right. Okay. And all those can be in, do you know what regulation?
I think it's 91-103.
Yep, that's it. So if anybody ever is confused in that 91103, we'll kind of spell out exactly what you need to cover there. All right. So let's say you've done 91103. Okay. You've done your flight plan. We'll come back to that. Weather, and you think you're ready to go. So you head out with your friend to the aircraft. Okay. And you use your checklist. You do your walk around, your pre-flight. And as you're doing your pre-flight, you notice that a cotter pin is missing in the tire. Okay, there's one of the cotter that should be there is not there. Uh, how would you handle that situation?
Um, I would probably squawk the airplane and have maintenance put in another one.
Okay. Um, let's say that let's assume that you're renting this aircraft yourself, or and even better yet, you own the aircraft. How would you know if you are able to alter the plane, and put in another cotter pin, for example?
Um, Part 43, appendix. I think it's appendix A or C. One of them goes through pilot preventive maintenance, which it basically tells you like what the pilot is allowed to perform maintenance wise on the airplane.
Okay. All right. So AC 4312A. So if we went and looked in there, we would be looking for something related to the tire and the assembly of the tire. Now, another example. Let's say you have a screw missing that fell out of the cowling. What
Mhm.
about? Could you do that?
Yeah, the screw I would feel comfortable doing myself. The cotter pin, if it was just laying on the ground, I don't know if it's broken or not, so I probably wouldn't try to put it back in. That's why I said
Right.
I wouldn't do it myself. But if it's a screw that's just popped out, I would feel comfortable putting that in myself.
Okay. So like it's a pretty right.
It's like
Okay.
a personal limitation, yeah.
All right. Sounds good. Okay. Perfect. So you've done the walk around. Everything looks good. You get in the aircraft with your friend, and you're checking the doc. What documents of the aircraft would you be looking for?
For the aircraft, I would be looking for the airworthiness certificate, the registration, the operating limitations in the form basically of the POH, the weight and balance of the airplane, and then any placards that are required by the POH and the compass card.
In the compass card. Okay. All right. So walking through those, that acronym. So airworthiness certificate.
Mm.
Does that have an expiration date associated with it?
No.
Okay. How would you know that the aircraft is airworthy?
Well, you'd have to, a lot of things. The inspections all have to be done.
Okay.
Airworthiness directives have to be followed. And, basically upon inspection, you have to make sure that everything looks good.
Okay. So just to stop there in the documents, right? We're looking at the airworthiness certificate. You go ahead and take out the aircraft's maintenance log. Tell me what kind of inspections are you looking for to make sure the aircraft is airworthy?
Yeah, so like I said, the airworthiness directives, those have to be completed. If you're flying IFR, then you have to have a VOR inspection every 30 days. You have to have a 100-hour inspection, an annual inspection. The transponder inspection has to be done in the past 24 calendar months. The altimeter and static system altitude reporting equipment has to be done in the past 24 calendar months. And the ELT has to be inspected after 12 calendar months or half of its battery life.
All right, half its battery life. Is there any sort of cumulative use associated with the battery?
Or 1 hour.
1 hour. Okay. All right. A good acronym for that is 121.5. So take the first two every 12 months, and then the 1 hour, then 0.5 would be the battery life. So that's a decent acronym there. Okay, so you went to walk through the different acronyms associated there. Any of those that we would not need on today's flight, assuming you're a private pilot, you can only fly VFR, as you mentioned.
Yeah, we wouldn't need you do not need the VOR inspection, and you also do not need I think it's the altitude reporting equipment you only need if it's IFR.
The altimeter.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, and that would be 91,411. So if you looked in there, it would say that there. Okay. All right. Awesome. So you went ahead and looked at the maintenance log. All those look good. Another thing with airworthiness directives you mentioned, are there different types of airworthiness directives?
Yeah, there's recurring ADs, there's like a one-time standard AD, and then there's I think it's called urgent ADs.
Okay. One time recurring, and then that would be emergency AD. So like something that they put out, in emergency. So if we wanted to look at those, right, we could go to drs.faa.gov, and then it will tell you the AD final rules, and then you put in the make and model. So in this case, if we're flying Cessna 172, it would tell you the ADs. So one of them is the seat rail. They put out an AD. It needs to be recurrently inspected because people were having issues with that. So, all right, awesome. So we've looked at the airworthiness certificate and the inspections associated. Going on to the registration, does that have an expiration date? The registration of the aircraft?
Yeah, it's 7 years, 84 calendar months.
Okay. All right. 7 years. Perfect. And that's changed a little bit over the past few years. All right. So that was registration, and you've checked, obviously you said your POH, placards, compass cards. Is compass card something that's required for this VFR flight?
Yes.
Okay. And that's because moving on to the next question, right? This VFR flight in general, what FAA requirements are there for your equipment?
91,205.
91,205. Okay. And that's completely acceptable. For some people, some DPs. In this case, if we wanted to spell them out, which of 91,205 is not required for this flight then?
For this flight, we're flying a single engine, fixed pitch Cessna. So let's see, we would not have a temperature gauge because we don't have liquid cooled engines. We would not have a manifold pressure gauge because we have a fixed pitch propeller. And we would also not have the landing gear position indicator lights because we have a fixed gear.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. So NA tomato flames for, you mentioned there's difference day and night, right? For the day, the magnetic compass is required, which would mean that you said that the magnetic compass card would be associated with that. All right. What about for night? Let's list those out for me, the night requirements.
Yeah, the night requirements, it's everything included in day requirements, plus you need fuses or circuit breakers, which in the Cessna we have circuit breakers. You need a landing light if operating for hire. You need anti-collision lights, position lights, and a source of electrical power, which in our case is an alternator.
An alternator. All right. Perfect. So would you need all these, all of the, the day VFR and night VFR on this flight, assuming you're leaving at around 7 p.m. night, sunset at 8 p.m.
If you're going to be flying at night, you do, yeah.
Okay. So in this case, we're going to Waco. It's a little bit longer than an hour flight, so most likely, definitely would want those on board. Okay. All right, perfect. So that was the required equipment. Got the required documents. Side note here, what is an MEL and do we have one for the Cessna?
An MEL is a minimum equipment list, and we do not have one for the Cessna.
Okay, do not have one for the Cessna. All right. Easy enough. Okay. All right, so you and your friend get in the plane. All right, you go ahead and start taxiing, talking to tower. You're taxiing down the taxiway to the runway, and you notice that the attitude indicator is acting funny. The suction doesn't seem to be properly, the vacuum suction seems to be a little bit weak, and it's kind of wobbling back and forth. It's not correct. How would you handle a situation? Every once in a while it'll bob to the left, maybe it'll bob to the right. It's just doing all kinds of funny things. Doesn't seem to be working properly.
Well, I would continue taxiing and try a run up before I, just automatically decided that it wasn't working. If it still wasn't working after troubleshooting enough,
let's say it doesn't work.
so at that point I'd probably taxi back, and then I would consider all the things that do need to be, operative to continue the flight. So if we checked, let's see, if we checked the regulation for day and night VFR, attitude indicator is not on it. We would also have to check, directives. And as far as I know, it's not required by any airworthiness directives, but you'd still want to double check. You'd have to check the type certificate data sheet of the airplane, and I believe it's not prescribed on that it's required. And then you would have to check the POH in the equipment list. You'd have to check if that's a required item. And if all of those things, which I don't believe it's required by any of those lists, we can basically mark the attitude indicator. You'd have to placard it as inoperative, and then you'd have to disable it, and then you continue on your way without the attitude indicator. So it would still be legal to go as long as you go through all those things.
Perfect. All right, that's exactly what anybody would expect for an answer like that. Now, if we do go ahead and go to the POH here, and we wanted to look to see if this is required per the POH, we would come to the right here in the equipment list. You see it's in section 6. We would just go down to section 6, and we would check the equipment list. It kind of very easy in this case here. So section 6. So we go down to the equipment list. And if we note here that if an item has a -R, then it is required items for equipment for FAA certification. And if we go to the attitude indicator, which the attitude indicator is in the vacuum section, the attitude indicator actually has a -S, which means it's just a standard. It's a standard equipment. It's not actually required. Okay, so you can look in here. It's in there, and it would just be a -S. So you're right. It's not required for the flight per se. And then you did mention the TCDS. Um, if we were to look that up in the TCDS, the type certificate data sheet, you would just type in 3A12. So if we do that right here, we type in 3A12. So type certificate data sheet is in, if you look in the top, the link there, drs.faa.gov. You just go to the TCDS number, put in 3A12, and this is the 172 through, they have all the model numbers. So if you come down here, 172 blank through 172Q, which would include our model, which would be an M today, Mike model. So you mentioned the TCDS, right? Now, in this case, we're assuming we're flying a 172 Mike model in this instance. So what I did is I went to drs.faa.gov, and when you go there, you can type in the make and model of your aircraft, and it'll pull up the type certificate data sheets. For if you are using this same make and model, you can just type in 3A12 in the top right here. Sorry, top left, 3A12. It'll pull up the sheet, and if you go to the down, it's kind of tough to read these things, but if you go down to the model that you are flying, and you scroll down to the equipment, if there is any required equipment for the TCDS, it'll say it right here. So it says model 172H and on, which would apply to us. Stall warning indicator, and then it mentions that model of the stall warning indicator. So if you didn't have it, you'd have to buy it off of the Cessna website or whatnot and install it. So in this case, you said the attitude indicator was not applicable there. Now, in order for a full view of this process that Taylor just mentioned, right, we can go to here. So 91.213 is the regulation that outlines this, and you would just follow this flow chart here, which is you find this online. Just type in 91.213 flow chart. Essentially what we're doing is you're looking through the equipment list in the POH, look for R. If you're using, that specific POH, look, 3A12 in the TCDS. You look for the AD. Those are also in drs.faa.com. 91.205/207, which is what, that's the day VFR, right? And then your personal limits. So looking at all these things, if none of them required it, then as Taylor mentioned, you would need to either deactivate it or placard it as, deactivate it, remove it, and then placard it as an op. So doing these things, let's say you did discard, you are able to deactivate it.
Mm-hmm.
However you would do that and placard it as inoperative, would you still continue the flight in that case?
Personally, if it's if we're going out nighttime, I would probably want my attitude indicator, because you can get into stuff like false horizons and stuff, and like flying through the city, there could be lights that could look like a false horizon. So personally, if I was flying at night, if I was going daytime, I wouldn't necessarily need it as a personal limitation, but at nighttime, I think I would.
Okay, so in this case, since it's getting night, you would. Okay, perfect. All right, so walking through all those steps for the enough equipment. Okay, in this case, let's say you just got a new aircraft. You went out, got a new aircraft, you did weight and balance, pre-flighted, and now you're taxiing and you take off. Okay, so now let's go ahead and move into the weather portion, where you've already looked at the weather for your flight. Let's go ahead and review what you would have looked at. So in this case, we can go to aviationweather.gov, products. We'll go to METAR TAF data, and then we'll type in the ID of the airport. So let's go ahead and type in KDTO. All right, today it's, looking pretty simple here. Let's go ahead and just read this real quick.
Yeah, KDTO, the 26th of the month, reported it at 1953 Zulu. Winds are 160 at 12 knots, 10 miles visibility, broken at 11,000. Temperature 24, dew point 16, altimeter setting 3016. Remarks, we've got an AO2 precipitation discriminator. Rain ended 25 past the hour. Our sea level pressure is 1020.6. I think this is the amount of precipitation. And then the last group of numbers is the temperature dew point detail. So that'll be 23.9 degrees Celsius and 15.6 degrees or for the dew point.
Okay. All right, perfect. Yeah, that's exactly how you would read that off. This is a pretty simple METAR here. I do have. All right, so I have another METAR here, just kind of some things. The dash RA, what would that mean in this case?
The dash means light and RA means rain.
All right. And going into the remarks, LTG, DS, and T, what about that?
That's lightning distant west and northwest.
West and northwest. Okay. All right. And perfect. Okay, going back to you mentioned the METAR and the TAF. Now we might want to look at some TAFs in the area of Waco. I don't believe Waco has a TAF. They do actually. So let's go and read the TAF down there for Waco.
Okay, reported Waco 26th of the month at 1731 Zulu, valid from the 26th at 1800 till the 27th at 1800. Winds at 120 at 8 knots, plus 6 miles visibility, overcast 11,000, and then temporarily from the 26th at 1800 till the 26th at 2000, broken at 2,800, and then from the 27th at 1,500 and forward, winds 170 at 7, 6 miles visibility or greater. Showers in the vicinity broken at 2,500.
Okay. So we read there real quick, temporarily from today at 1800 Zulu. We know that Central is currently minus, what will be the correction there?
It's -5 right now.
-5.
Daylight savings time, so it's it's -5.
Okay, so let's say you're taking off at 7, like we said, 7 p.m.
Mhm.
-5 of 18 would be what?
So at the 18th the 1800 -5 would be 1300. So that would be 1 o'clock p.m.
1 to
until 3 o'clock p.m.
okay, so 1 to 3.
So this temporarily would not apply to our time.
Okay, it looks like it might be a little bit low there, broken at 2000. Okay. Let's talk real quick about the weather. Let's say that temporarily from 18 to 20 was during the time that you'll be arriving, and it said broken at 800 feet. Would that affect the flight that you're doing?
Oh yeah, I wouldn't go if it was that. At least not VFR.
Okay. What do you need the ceilings to be at least so you can take off and play in that flight?
I think 1,000.
1,000 feet.
At
Right.
least VFR.
Okay, 1,000 feet. That's correct. And what about the visibility?
3 miles.
3 miles. So in order for you to take off VFR, it has to be 1,000 feet and 3 miles. Now that's marginal at that. I mean, marginal VFR. What would full VFR be?
VFR would be 5 miles visibility or greater and 3,000 or greater.
3,000 or greater. Okay, so that's ideally what you would want. Now legally it's 1,003, but okay. All right, so that's perfect. METAR and TAF there. Now that we're on this kind of like raw data sort of section here, let's go and look at some wind and temp data for the South Central. And let's look at, ideally we look at the Dallas area here. So looking at Dallas at, let's say 6,000 feet. If you can see that there, if I can highlight it, kind of hard to see. What would that say there?
So at 6,000 feet, 9900 means winds are calm and temperature is positive 14 degrees Celsius.
Positive 14 degrees. Okay. And let's look at 3,000 feet.
So that means winds are 140 at 17 knots.
140 at 17 knots. Why is it not reporting a temperature?
Because in this case, 3,000 feet is, I think it's because it's close enough to the ground that they expect you to either interpolate or use the ATIS data.
Okay. We also don't see a temperature here at AMA at 6,000 feet.
Right. That's because it's within 2,500 feet of field elevation.
For the winds, for not to report, it would be, yes, within 2,500.
That means so Amarillo is within 6,000, is within 2,500 feet of 6,000 feet.
Okay, why would it not be reporting the winds? You see how at Abilene there's no winds here?
Yeah, because that means that Abilene is within 1,500 feet of 3,000.
1,500 feet at 3,000. All right. Perfect. Could you read 30,000 feet over Dallas? Now, this wouldn't really apply to us here. We're not going to 30,000 feet, but let's go ahead and if you could read that real quick.
Oh, yeah. Winds are 260 at 47 knots, and you see the note at the top that says temps negative above 24,000. So we'll assume that's a negative 41 degrees Celsius.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Okay. Now let's go to last one. Let's see. It looks like Tri-Cities at 34,000 feet.
Okay, so here you take the first two numbers minus minus 5 minus 20. So it's gonna be minus 50 plus. Okay, so I'm thinking seven nine.
Okay.
So you subtract 50 and then add 100 to the second two numbers. So,
79 minus 50.
but there's no, oh yeah, there is a 290. I was thinking there's no 290
290.
direction, but there is.
Okay. So
So
it'd be
subtract 50 from the first two numbers. So 79 minus 50 is 29, and then you add a 0. So ones are from 290, and then you take the second number 09 and you add 100 to that. So it's going to be at 109 knots, and the temperature is negative 54.
okay. Perfect. All right. That is that. How often is this winds aloft chart issued?
I think every 6 hours.
2 times daily.
2 times daily. Okay,
2
12
times
hours.
daily. Okay. Yes. I think it kind of shows up here. So the 12th and 24th issue 2 times. Okay. All right. Okay, let's go. We'll move on to prognostic charts. I'm trying to see if I missed anything about those. Okay, so going back. Okay, so I forgot about that. So TAF is released how often?
Every 6 hours.
A TAF is every okay. And is it valid? You know, let's say you looked at the TAF for Alliance Airport before you went on your flight. Would that be Alliance is right here? Would that be valid for Denton Airport? Is there a certain range on that?
It's valid for 5 miles.
Okay, nautical miles or
Statute miles.
statute miles?
So
All right,
probably not for
so
Denton.
probably not. Okay, all right. So there is a range on that TAF as far as distance goes. Perfect. All right, let's go ahead and go to our products, prog charts. see that. And we'll look at the prog chart for North America here. All right, so I'll just zoom in on things and just kind of tell me what they are as I zoom in on them. So let's zoom in on this symbol here, this H.
High pressure.
High pressure. Okay. What about this orange line here?
The orange line is isobar. Wait, no, not an isobar. Trough.
Trough. Okay, what's a trough?
A trough is a line of low pressure.
Line of low pressure. Okay. What was this L here?
Low pressure.
Low pressure. Okay, let's go up here. What is this red and blue alternating line?
A stationary front.
Stationary front. What about this blue line?
Cold front.
Cold front. And there's a red line up here.
A warm front.
Warm front. There's a purple line.
Occluded front.
Occluded front. Okay. All right, perfect. I don't see any. Oh, there is one. What's this down here? This orange line here.
Dry line.
Dry line. Perfect. Okay. So if you ever didn't know that, there's a legend in the bottom right. It tells you all of the symbols right there, but you seem to have a good grasp on that. And then you mentioned it already, but these little squiggly white lines moving through Kansas right here.
Mm-hmm. Those are isobars.
And what are isobars?
They're lines of equal pressure.
Okay.
Equal pressure.
Connect lines of equal pressure. All right, let's talk about some of this stuff. So the pressure systems here, high pressure and low pressure. Let's look at this one in Missouri, north of Missouri. Now this is, well, maybe we might be looking at something. No, we can't. Okay. Wouldn't apply to our flight plan today. But let's say we were flying from east to west over Missouri, and you're flying to the north part of, over the top of this high pressure system.
Mm-hmm.
If you're flying from east to west, is there a headwind or a tailwind that we could expect with that?
East
to west. Yes.
You would expect a headwind.
A headwind. Why?
Because high pressure moves clockwise. Clockwise, outwards, and downwards.
Clockwise, outwards, and downwards. What about a low pressure system?
Low pressure is the opposite, so counterclockwise, upwards, and inwards.
Upwards and inwards. Perfect. Okay. Awesome. All right, and moving on to the there it is. Okay, let's go with this one up here. Okay, this blue front here, you used to mention some cold front. What kind of weather can we expect ahead of the cold front?
Bad weather, like thunderstorms, and you would expect like showery precipitation and cumulus type clouds.
All right. How about the visibility?
Visibility would probably be good.
Good visibility. Okay. You mentioned thunderstorms. What are some of the ingredients we need for a thunderstorm?
You need unstable air, moisture, and well, you need like rising air and an unstable lapse rate.
Okay, what's an unstable? So instability. What would the unstable lapse rate be? Like what does that mean?
It means like as you increase in altitude, you decrease in pressure with a greater than 2 degrees. Like stable lapse rate is like 2 degrees Celsius per 1,000 feet. Unstable would be greater than that.
Okay. So all right, perfect. So that's the 3 ingredients. And as that cold front is moving, correct, it's pushing because is cold air more dense or less dense than hot air?
More dense.
More dense. So as it's moving quickly, cold fronts move pretty quick, it's pushing the warm air higher up. It's kind of it's actually forcing the warm air upwards. And as it's going upwards, is it cooling or is it warming?
It's cooling.
Okay, and as the warmer air is cooling, what happens? In other words, does cool air, does warm air hold more moisture?
Well, when the warm air is pushed up, the warm air holds more moisture, but when the warm air is pushed up, it cools down, and because it has all that moisture in it, that's what forms like the cumulus clouds.
All right. So as it's forced, like you said, okay, so it releases the moisture, and that becomes the clouds. What are the stages of a thunderstorm?
You have cumulus, mature, and dissipating.
All right. Cumulus return dissipating. Perfect. All right. The dry line here. Uh, can you expect moist air or dry air on the east side of that dry line?
On the east side is going to be moist air.
All right. So the side with half the half circles is your moist air. Perfect. All right, awesome. So that looks like that. That, and okay, so that's good. And then the stationary front. Oh, sorry, the warm front. Last thing. What kind of weather can we expect to the warm front?
Warm fronts, you still get like you can expect more like steady type precipitation, more like stratus type clouds, stabler air because they're slower moving. You'll probably have some bad visibility and it's warmer air. You might get like fog or low clouds.
Okay. All right. Perfect. All those things. Right. Okay. And you said bad visibility,
Hmm.
and stationary fronts, which we know is where they both meet, and we can expect weather from both. Correct.
Hmm.
Okay. Let's go to let's look at a PIREP for there's any in DFW.
Oh, nice.
All right. So there is some over DFW. Okay. So read that third, so we can highlight it for you. Let's try to read this really quickly.
Okay. This is a UA, which is a standard pirate over DFW 315 radial, 25 miles out. Time was 1749 Zulu. Flight level 040, which means 4,000 feet. Type was Embraer 170, and the report is moderate turbulence during descent.
During descent. Perfect. That's yep. So from DFW 315, 25 miles out on that radial. So if you can kind of picture that. All right. Awesome. And why does this UUA here? What does that mean?
UUA is like an urgent pirate, basically,
Urgent
which
PIREP?
means that that's like it's like an important report. So it wants to like grab your attention.
Okay.
It's
All
probably
right.
something important.
Yes. Urgent. Okay. All right. And next, let's go ahead let's go ahead and after reviewing that, let's go ahead and look at some different types of air mets and sigmets. So here I have the graphical air met chart pulled up on aviationweather.gov. Um, we see all kinds of stuff here. Let's kind of diagnose this. What are the three different kinds of air mets?
We have Sierra Tango Zulu.
All right, what do those mean?
Sierra is for like IFR obscurations, like IFR conditions. Tango is turbulence, and Zulu is icing.
Okay, perfect. Let's look at some of these that might apply to this flight. This is the closest one here. We have a air met for turbulence, which you noted was Tango. Read this. Well, actually, it already kind of decodes it. I guess they have the decode on here. But base of 26,000, 37,000 is moderate there. All right. What about SIGMETs? What's the difference between a SIGMET and an AirMet?
Um, an airmet is for like some smaller aircraft, and a Sigma is for all aircraft.
Okay. Which ones are more severe?
Sigmets.
SIGMETs. Okay. What's a convective SIGMET?
Basically like an advisory of convective activity, thunderstorm type activity.
Okay. And we see some here.
Hmm.
See convective SIGMET north. It kind of tells you right there
Hmm.
the location of it. Okay. All right. How often are AirMets released?
Airmets are valid for 2 hours.
Okay. Released every and they have updates in between, but every 6 hours so 4 times a day they're released, and there might be some things in between there, but okay, perfect. All right. You mentioned that AirMet Zulu was which one?
Freezing, icing.
Icing. Okay. Talk about some icing. What are the 3 categories of icing?
Icing could be instrument icing, structural icing, or induction icing.
Okay, perfect. And what are some types of structural icing?
You have rime, clear, and mixed.
Rime, clear, and mixed. Okay. Are any of those more severe than the others?
Clear is probably the most severe because clear is heavier and harder to see.
Okay. It can build up and you might not even know it. If you do accumulate icing, what's some things that happen to the aircraft aerodynamically?
It gets heavier. Your stall speed increases. You also have more drag, and yeah, with more weight.
Okay, so just overall, the aircraft performs worse,
Right.
correct? Much worse. Icing is definitely. Let's say you were flying to Waco, and you were at a altitude where there was chance of icing, and you did see some rime icing accumulate on the window or on the cowling.
Mhm.
What are some ways you can alleviate that uh, yourself?
Well, um we have like the defrosters in the Cessna, or I guess like the windshield heat,
Okay,
basically. You could pull the cabin heat.
all right. What else? Is there anything like what? How would you prevent carburetor icing at that point if you started to see
Um,
icing build up?
you could get carb heat
Full carb heat.
and pitot heat to prevent instrument icing.
Okay. What else could you do? Just to help with icing in general.
You would want to increase your speed
All right.
and maybe not put as much flaps down on
Okay.
landing.
All right. What would lowering your altitude do?
Increase your temperature.
Use your temperature, so that might help.
So-
Okay.
so, yeah.
All right. Perfect. All right. So for everybody watching, that's really important to designate the 3 groups of icing. Most people like to just say clear, rime, and mixed, but that's a category of structural. Then you have your carburetor icing, sorry, induction icing, and then you have your instrument icing. So, all right, moving on. Really quickly, can you name 3 different kinds of fog and what they are?
I could try. We've got upslope fog, radiation fog, and we'll say advection fog.
Okay, what's upslope fog?
Upslope fog is like in mountainous areas where wind blows air that is like it's on the surface, like the bottom of the mountain, and so it's warm, and then the wind blows it up the mountain and it cools down, and so it basically turns into visible moisture in the form of fog.
Okay. What about the other 2?
Advection icing is over the coast where you might have to correct me on this. I think it's air that is over the sea is warmer because the ocean stays warm even whenever the air cools. So warm air that's sitting on top of the water blows inland and cools whenever it's over the cool air.
Yeah, that's it.
Is it
Right. So a body of water changes temperature
faster?
less. Yeah,
Or
right.
sorry, slower.
Or slower.
Yeah.
So yeah, so you're right. So the warmer air over the water slides over the cooler land, and you're right. It reaches its what?
Dew
What
point.
causes dew point, and then that's when it can no longer hold the moisture. All right. What about last one you mentioned was advection fog?
Radiation fog. It's just whenever like ground
Radiation.
radiation, whenever the temperature cools to its dew point at night, basically.
Okay, so at night. So okay. All right. So you can expect to see that during some night flying there. Um, okay. A lot more weather questions. Let's go and just go to the end of this discussion here. And can you give me the standard temperature and pressure numbers real quick?
15 Celsius. and 299 or 2.
All right. What about in Fahrenheit and millibars?
Oh God, Fahrenheit. I think it's 57 or
59.
59.
Uh-huh.
59 and in millibars it's 1013.2.
Okay. Yeah, I've just seen a lot. Some students. Yeah. All right. Perfect. Okay. And then last section here before we end, we're only going to be able to cover 3 in this time frame. But going off of our flight plan, right? So it does look like the weather will be good today to do our flight. As far as your privileges as a private pilot, okay? Are there any concerns here going just straight south?
Yeah, I'd say like being in complicated airspace, you probably want to go. Can you zoom in just a little bit on Denton?
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you see right here, the shelf is at 3,000. So
The shelf is at what?
3,000. The bottom of the Bravo shelf, right south of Denton, is at 3,000.
Oh, correct. Okay. All right.
So you definitely wouldn't want to climb up that high early, or you just want to go like around Alliance to
Okay.
the west, um,
Right.
until you were able to get clearance into the Bravo with approach or center.
Okay. So obviously we get into the requirements to enter all the airspace. Let's go ahead and just real quick, let's say you're on the ground at an airport
Hmm.
and let's just imaginarily shoot a rocket up to space. Can you walk me through all the airspace you would hit?
Yeah, so ground to 2,500 feet, you have Delta airspace. Between 25 and looks like 4,000. Between 25 and 4,000, you've got Echo. 4,000 to, is that 10,000 or 11?
So the top of that of the Bravo, what would that be?
Oh, 11,000. Sorry, I was
Okay.
looking up here.
11,000.
So 4,000 to 11,000, you've got Bravo airspace. Above Bravo, you've got Echo until 18, and then 18 to, so flight level 180 to flight level 600 is Alpha airspace, and then above that is Echo.
Echo. All right, perfect. Okay. So ideally we would probably want to head somewhere to the west first, correct?
Mhm.
And then kind of go from there. Okay, I can't really do it here, but all right, let's just do a little bit of sectional chart real quick. Could you read me the McKinney airport data? Just starting with the title there.
Yeah, McKinney National, TKI is the airport identifier, CT is control tower, 118.825 is the frequency, the star means the tower is part-time, and C means that it reverts to CTAF, I believe. And then ATIS information on that frequency, 589 is airport elevation. The star L means that it's got pilot controlled lighting. Longest runway is 7,000 feet. 2295, I think that would be Unicom frequency for like ops. And then RP is right pattern for runway 36.
Right pattern for 36. All right, so yeah, that's all correct. Yeah, so that C would mean that once the tower ends its service, then that 118.825 would be the CTAF frequency at that point, right? What is the star? Okay, let's look at the airport diagram here. What does the star above the airport field mean?
That means that has a beacon.
Beacon. Okay. What time does that operate normally?
The beacon?
Mm,
Nighttime.
nighttime. Okay. You know what definition of nighttime?
Probably sunset to sunrise if I were to guess, but I could double check. I could look it up.
Yep, sunset, sunrise to sunrise. Okay. And yeah, like you said, you could look it up on the actual chart data here. And if we did look it up, we would just go down to the, let me find it real quick. There it is. So rotating beacon is in operation sunset to sunrise, like you said. All right, perfect. All right. So going back to McKinney, what are the little divots out of the airport diagram mean?
It means it has services such as fuel.
Okay. How high does this delta go up to?
2,900 feet, or I
100
guess
feet.
2899.
Okay, not inclusive. Okay. And I assume that it was a delta. Why do I know that it's a delta? Whoops.
Because you've got the blue dashed lines
Oh, okay.
around it.
Perfect. All right. Let's just look at a few more things here. Let's go to down here to mineral wells. What airspace, if you're on the ground at mineral wells, what airspace are you in?
Echo.
Echo. Let's say you took a spaceship all the way up. Can you tell me what airspace you would hit?
You take Echo up to 18,000.
Echo up to 18. And how do you know that?
Because Mineral Wells is in the magenta dash, which means Echo to the surface.
Okay. Let's say you were, I don't know if you can see you can't see. Okay, let's say you were in between the dashed magenta line and the shaded region.
Yeah.
Where does Echo start then?
Echo would start at 700 feet above the ground.
Okay. And then what about outside it? Let's say just you're out in the free airspace, outside of the shaded region. What
Um,
does it start?
then Echo starts at 1,200 above the ground.
1200 above the ground. All right. Perfect. Okay. Let's go to the closest. Oh, it's closest. Here it is. All right. We'll go ahead and look at Abilene here. What kind of airspace is Abilene in?
Charlie,
Charlie. All right. And what about DFW Airport?
Bravo.
Bravo. Okay. Let's look at Jacksboro Mooney 21F. What airspace is that in if you're on the surface?
Mm,
This tiny little airport out in the middle of nowhere. If you're on the surface at
Golf.
Jacksboro. Golf, right. Okay. Um, all right. Before we go into further airspace, let's look at more of these diagrams. What does this 3-2 mean?
That means the highest obstacle in that quadrant is 3,200 feet.
Okay. What is that? What is the name for that number?
The MEF, maximum
MEF.
elevation figure.
Okay. What are these two little symbols here and the numbers next to it mean? These little
Um,
tower-looking figures.
and that means it's a lighted tower that's above, I think it means it's above 2,000 feet, like two lighted towers. And then 1999 is the actual height of the tower, and 2859 is the altimeter. So it would be like 2859 MSL at the top of the tower.
And then 1999 AGL.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Um, let's say you were sitting on the ground in Denton Airport. What would your AGL be at that time?
Sitting on the ground?
Yeah,
Like 0.
0. Okay. All right. This little dashed magenta line here with this 3 degrees 30 E. What is that line?
That's isogonic line.
Isogonic line, and what does that show?
That is that shows you your variation,
Okay.
which is the difference between true north and magnetic north.
Okay. What is this R? What is this Claston Airport? What does that R mean there?
That means R means restricted. I know it's like a private airport.
Private airport. Okay.
I don't want to say
What is,
restricted because that could be confused, but
right,
it's
it's private
private.
airport.
Can't land there.
What is this little symbol here with the
That is parachute jumping area.
parachute jumping area? Okay. Should be cautious around that. All right, perfect. Okay. And do a few more of these. This Shepherd 2 MOA, what is designating that MOA airspace there?
What?
How do you know, like, how do you know where the MOA starts and stops?
Oh, it's, that outside border that has like the lines.
Okay, perfect. Um, in that MOA there, is that you need permission to enter the MOA?
No.
Okay. And obviously that's, you said military operations area, so might want to be careful, but yeah, that's correct. What is an alert area?
Uh, the sectional gave it away. It's just high density of student training.
High density student training. Okay. All right. And let's go up here to a little bit more. This R, you can pick any of these. R-5601G. What is
Mhm.
that?
That's restricted airspace?
Okay, can you enter that?
No. Well, you can, but you need clearance.
You need clearance. Okay, perfect. Now, if we were to looking on this, there is one. Perfect. So those restricted airspaces, you said you can enter, but you need permission. Okay. Going over here, what is this gray outline airspace here?
The gray means it's a TRSA, a terminal radar service area.
Okay. And what does that mean?
It means that you can basically elect whether or not to receive radar services.
Okay, perfect. All right, and last but not least, near the Amarillo Airport, we see this P-47 with a combed blue outline. What does that mean?
That's a prohibited area, so you can't go in it.
Okay, can you get permission?
No.
No, it's just completely prohibited. Okay. All right, well, that will conclude this mock oral exam for a private pilot certificate. Again, this oral was formulated with Taylor being the student. She was a previous 141 check instructor, meaning that most of these answers were already sort of built into what she knows. And so a lot of it I was unable to take notes on, but in an actual oral, as I was mentioning, I do take notes live. As you can see here, I would take notes as you get things either incorrect or confused. I'll write down the question, and then after the oral is said and done, after the 2 hours is done, I'll send the study guide to you so you know what to prepare for your actual oral. Again, in this, we kind of spend a lot of time on certificates, privileges, aircraft, weather. Now, these things that are, it's all dynamic, right? If you're doing well in a certain topic, then we'll speed it up. If I don't think you need more questions on a certain area, we'll skip that. It's just in this case, it might seem like the weather was quite extensive, but that's just because I was trying to give what it would be like in a full weather oral or weather topic. So again, this is all changes based on you, but that'll be it for this mock oral. Again, Check Ride Study Guide will offer the full 2 hours. You can go by yourself and sit down with me, and we'll do the same thing. I'll change up the questions a little bit, obviously, but yeah, thank you guys for watching, and come see us. Thanks.
Hey, thank you so much for watching this video on free pilot training. If you enjoyed this, please be sure to smash that like button and go check out their website at checkridestudyguide.com. And then be sure to check out all the other great training videos I have on this channel. See ya!